Okay, so I said I was going to do a review of this movie yesterday, and to be honest with you, I was just too knackered from going to watch the movie, because obviously we went to watch Rogue One at the first showing, which was 1 minute past midnight on Thursday morning. So yeah, I was knackered yesterday, I just couldn't be bothered to do the review, so I thought I'll wait a day, wait till I'm more alert, more awake, and then I'll do the review. And this is what I'm doing now. And this is going to be a very spoiler heavy review. I don't believe in doing non-spoiler reviews because I think that's bollocks. Because after all, what would I say? You know, yeah, the movie's great, there, we're done, non-spoiler over. So, yeah, and also I really want to say something, because this is really niggling at me. There's been some criticism to say that we're getting a Star Wars movie every year, and that somehow takes away the magic because a Star Wars movie is an event. Well, I look at it like this. This couldn't be a better, a greater time to be a Star Wars fan than to be alive right now. Way back when the original trilogy was coming out, you had to wait 2 or 3 years to see a Star Wars movie, and now we're getting one every year. And if you think about it, if you really think about this, you're not getting one, you're only getting one a year. So you have to wait a year before you get another Star Wars movie, and I think that's plenty enough time for you to get excited and to get hyped for Star Wars and for it to be an event. And don't forget, we're getting a saga movie every 2 years, so you've still got that even more of a build-up to the saga movies than you have to the anthology movies. And even in regards to that, we're not getting the Han Solo movie now for 2 years. So, you know, it's still an event. If you're a Star Wars fan, you've got loads of films to look forward to, and I think it's a fantastic time to be alive if you're a Star Wars fan. And, you know, I think it's bullshit that people are saying that it's taken away from the magic of Star Wars. That's bollocks. It really is. Now that's out of the way, let's get to the Rogue One review. Okay, so Rogue One, where does it fit in the timeline, Star Wars timeline? Well, I would say it fits in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. It doesn't really, I would say it doesn't really mesh well with Revenge of the Sith. It doesn't really carry on from where Revenge of the Sith left off. It does have elements within it that link it to Revenge of the Sith, but it's not a smooth transition as it is with A New Hope. A New Hope is a perfect mesh, the two movies. The last 10 minutes of Rogue One perfectly mesh in with the first 10 minutes of A New Hope, and I'm guessing that you all know what the story is behind Rogue One. It's about the rebels, led by Jen Erso, trying to get the Death Star plans to the Rebel Alliance after stealing it from the Empire. Okay, so Rogue One did a really great job in portraying the characters. It really made you care about these people in such a small amount of time. And again, there's been some criticism to say that people felt underwhelmed and they didn't feel connected to the characters, or they didn't feel for them in the movie. Again, I acknowledge that it's subjective. Everybody comes into a movie and gets a different reaction to the movie, but I think Rogue One did a fantastic job in connecting the audience to the characters and making you feel for them, because you did. Now, this is no spoiler. I think everybody really knows this, that none of the characters make it out of this movie alive, because they're not in A New Hope or anything like that. None of these characters make it out alive. This is a sacrifice movie. This is where their lives are on the line, and they sacrifice their lives for the greater good in order to get these Death Star plans to the Alliance. And, you know, there are some really tear-jerking moments in there, especially from this character here, K2SO. He's the robot in the movie, and although you really feel for the guy, he has some great comedic moments too, some great one-liners that he comes out with. So yeah, Rogue One does a really great job with its characters and making you feel for them, and you really feel that this is, you know, a futile attempt by them, a last-ditch attempt to get these plans to the rebellion, which at this point, which is something else that it brings to the movie, to the whole Star Wars movie universe, is that in A New Hope, you know, the Rebel Alliance is this, you know, this hope, this big force that's standing against the Empire. Whereas in Rogue One, the Alliance is more or less giving up. They're getting ready to surrender because of the construction of the Death Star. They feel they have no way of stopping the Empire anymore after the construction of the Death Star. And it's really the actions of the people in Rogue One, Jen Erso and the rest of her crew, that really bring back the hope to the rebellion and give it that little bit more of a kick up the arse to fight back against the Empire. So it really does change the dynamic of the Star Wars universe, because you didn't know that before. You didn't know that the Alliance was on the verge of giving up and just calling it a day and not standing against the Empire anymore. So I think Rogue One did a fantastic job with its characters and giving more story to the Star Wars universe. Okay, so the way they used the Death Star in the movie was really intelligent, because they couldn't really use the Death Star to go around just destroying planets, because we all know that the first planet the Death Star destroys is Alderaan. So the way they get around this is to suggest that the Death Star has other functions as well. It has different power settings on its super laser, so basically they can turn down the reactors of the Death Star so that it only destroys cities. And I thought that was a really intelligent, effective way of bringing the Death Star into the movie and making it this ominous presence, this really deadly thing that's in orbit around a planet. That they handled it really, really well. And there's something else that they do in the movie where they answer an age-old question: why would the Empire build a Death Star with such a fatal obvious flaw? And it actually plays out in the movie. Apparently, this is a sabotage. It was sabotaged by the creator, which was Jen Erso's dad. He was secretly going along with what the Empire wanted him to do, while all the time putting a flaw in the Death Star so the Alliance could destroy it. And he sends out a defecting Imperial pilot to send word to the Alliance that he's done this, that there's a way to destroy the Death Star and not to give up, and that's what he's been doing. So I think that's a really clever way of answering that age-old question and using the Death Star in an effective way in Rogue One.
I'm in the movie and I'm fucking awesome.
So again, there's been criticism again about Vader not being in Rogue One enough. But to be honest with you, I think this was fairly depicted in the trailers. We didn't see a lot of Vader in the trailers that we saw for Rogue One. And where he was used in a fantastic way. He had two great scenes. One scene was where he's with Krennic, and Krennic's like bragging about the Death Star and wanting more power and that sort of thing. And Krennic just does the iconic thing. He starts to go like that. He starts to be choked, force choked by Vader. Vader doesn't kill him. He just does it as a way to just torture the guy, which was fucking awesome. We get to see Darth Vader in a Bafta tank, and this leads into the theory that he was heavily damaged during a battle with some Jedis that he was slaughtering or whatever, because he looked in a fairly bad way when he was in the Bafta tank sort of thing. Or whether this is just something that Vader does in order to regenerate himself, we don't know. But yeah, fantastic use of Vader. And the other scene was just fucking amazing. It was basically Vader just going to town on some rebel soldiers aboard a ship. And the first time you see Vader is you hear his voice, you hear the breathing, the iconic breathing, and then the lightsaber, the red lightsaber switches on, and then you just see the silhouette of Vader, and then he just goes to fucking town on these rebel soldiers. He's forced killing them, he's fucking throwing them about, he's using his lightsaber, he cuts one of them in half, and that sort of thing. They really do push this PG-13 thing to its limits. It's nothing that you haven't seen before in any other Star Wars movies, but it's the first time we've seen Vader really, really go to town and just outright slaughter people in front of him. I could watch that scene over and over again. Yeah, so Vader was fantastic in this movie, even if he was just in it for a short time. The effects in this movie are just fucking phenomenal, and just like its predecessors, it's the other trilogy, Star Wars movies, this Rogue One really pushes the boundaries of technology and really innovates CGI in ways that I've never seen before. I heard after I watched the movie that there was actually a mixture of miniature models and CGI in this, and really you cannot tell the difference. You cannot tell they've used models in this movie at all. And the space battles are just epic. They're just as epic as we saw in the original trilogy or in the prequels or anything. It's just amazing, especially the first person view of the X-Wings as they go into battle. That's just amazing. But the main thing I want to talk about is that something that I wasn't expecting in this movie was the CGI character of Tarkin. Unfucking believable. You couldn't tell that he wasn't a real human being, that he was a CGI character. And they also did the same with Princess Leia as well at the end of the movie. And it was just amazing. If you remember from, I think it was Revenge of the Sith, they actually tried to do Tarkin as a younger person, looking on the bridge of a Star Destroyer, looking at the Death Star being constructed. And to me, that was a little bit off. Whereas this is just fucking out of this world. You would just assume that that was Peter Cushing, the guy who played Tarkin in A New Hope. It was just amazing. It really was. I cannot praise the effects enough in this movie, and they really pushed out the boat and pushed the boundaries of what they can do with visual effects in Rogue One. Okay, so I'm not going to rate this movie. I don't think I could, because the thing is with movies, it's all subjective. People can go into a movie and have a completely different experience to somebody else, and that sort of thing. But for me personally, this movie has to be right up there with the original trilogy, because it fits so well with A New Hope, and it bleeds into it so well, and it's such a fantastic movie as well. It's definitely up there with my favourite Star Wars films of all time, which is the original trilogy. So that's how I feel about it, and this is everything that they promised it was going to be. This is a gritty Star Wars film. The emphasis on the wars part of that, because it does feel like a war film. Especially the ending sequence of the movie where they're fighting on the beach. It's very reminiscent of a war in the Pacific with that sort of thing, because of the beaches and stuff. And yeah, and the overall feel to the movie as well as being gritty in tone. It's gritty visually as well. It's got that whole everything's broken and smashed up look to it, like we got from the original trilogy sort of thing. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Rogue One, and although I won't rate this movie, I will recommend that people go and watch it, even as a standalone film. Even if you're not into Star Wars, you know, if you're just a sci-fi fan, you can go and watch this movie and really enjoy it for what it is. So yeah, this is Agent 117, sign off, and go and watch Rogue One. It's fucking fantastic.